Shanghai, the largest city in the world. The Chinese characters meaning upon the sea. I'm making my first visit since 1980, a time when China had just reopened to the outside world. Shanghai at this time of the year is very cold. On arrival, we ate some Japanese saimin to warm up, and then we walked over to the main railway station to buy tickets for Suzhou the next day, and afterwards decided to get right into the Shanghai spirit by visiting the most famous landmark, the BUND. It is certainly a spectacular sight at night as ferries and tourist boats ply their trade, and the rich and famous brave the below zero temperatures to get their first glimpse of this historical setting. These buildings were not only there in 1980, they've been there for over 100 years and still capture the interest and imagination. Next day, a visit to Suzhou, 75 miles from Shanghai, that takes less than 45 minutes on the 125 miles an hour express train. It was not a nice day, raining and cold, and not really the best day to take a tour, but it's an adventure and we were up for it. Like Shanghai, my last visit here had been almost 30 years ago, also in January. Our first port of call was the Lior.Forest Garden, a World Heritage Site that was first built in the 14th century and is a man-made limestone garden complex built in the Yuan dynasty and very interesting. In addition to the impressive garden scenery, one can see many examples of ancient Chinese architecture and furniture. The problem that day was the rain. Lunch was especially welcome, and we took the opportunity to eat Shanghai food, which comprises mainly dumplings and noodles. After that, we continued our tour with a trip down the Grand Canal. This dates back to the 14th century and even further, and Suzhou's interlocking canals have led it to be called the Venice of the East, and it still is one of the most beautiful cities in China. This area, Panmen, was built in 1351 and contains the only major piece of the original city wall. The boat trips gave us an opportunity to see the fascinating waterside buildings, both ancient and modern, as we floated through the town to our next destination. The tour was a bargain. It cost 15 yuan. That's about $1.50 per head for a day tour that included boat trips and visits to gardens and parks. Next stop, the Fengqiu Scenic Region, a historic part of the city right on the Grand Canal that's been restored to show how it would have been 650 years ago. One can almost get a feel of life back then and imagine the place as it was. There weren't many people around that day due to the weather conditions, but a really great place to visit, even if it was raining. We decided to have a snack, and the local people who were running the stall had learned some Cantonese from the many Hong Kong tourists that passed through here. What they were selling was like a patty cum waffle. It cost 3 yuan, that's about 30 cents. They were very friendly, and we were very cold, and the snack really appreciated. I always enjoy having a joke. We made our way back up the river and then to the railway station to catch the evening train back to Shanghai. 23 degrees centigrade in the train and 4 degrees outside, moving at 200 kilometers an hour back to Shanghai. A very enjoyable day. The next day we spent in Shanghai. A walk through the city was the order of the day. Christmas decorations were still adorning the place, giving it a nice spirit, especially as it felt snow may fall any minute. Downtown Shanghai has changed a lot, with plenty of shops and a blend of old and new. We decided to take a taxi over to Yuyun Garden to try the famous Shanghai gaozi, or meat dumplings. It's located right in the heart of the old town and has many shops and tea houses, as well as about 3 Starbucks. It certainly has a very Chinese feel to it, both the buildings and the decorations. It has as its center a carp pond. The dumplings were delicious and the setting very Chinese. After that, we found another Starbucks and then enjoyed looking around and just soaking in the atmosphere. Even did a little shopping. Over the road there was a Chinese drum band doing its thing. We then took a walk through the fascinating streets, making our way to Shanghai Old Street. It was certainly like going back in time, though the high-rises were never far away. A very quaint place. Tea shops abound, and it's a good place both to try tea and to buy tea. This is the trying part. Afterwards, more exploring and shopping. It's one of those areas that every city seems to have, where one can browse, shop, observe, and generally soak in the atmosphere of something different. There are a number of antique stalls too. From there we walked back to the Bund to catch the sun setting and the lights coming on, still trying to get used to the near zero temperature. The advertising boats trying to get the attention of visitors along this famous stretch of riverside. They must have heard we were visiting. The sunset, however, was nowhere to be seen. But it was still an interesting interlude that gave us the opportunity of having a nice walk before having a steamboat meal, then back to the hotel. Our final day. Then we decided to visit old Shanghai. This is the entrance, and Rebecca is admiring the bronze art that depicts scenes of times gone by. It's a great place to get a glimpse of the way things were, though it was a little run down. The antiques in the stores were so authentic they still had years of dust on them. Even the litter bins looked like 21st century antiques. Further down the street, the buildings were even more interesting, as was the wildlife. There were some fascinating places like the old film cafe and its bronze statue of Charlie Chaplin, and other bronze statues of famous Chinese people like Gokmuk Yeop, an old friend of mine. So we came to the end of the Odyssey. Really interesting. It had been a fascinating interlude from life in Hong Kong and very enjoyable. From there, we caught our last glimpses of old Shanghai and headed home. Another great memory. Already on Exaion.org, Burma, Kashmir in India, ancient Xi'an in China, historic Jerusalem, wonderful Copenhagen, majestic Ladakh, magnifico Barcelona, memories in London, Venice, and 100 more. Take a look.